So next thing is channel estimation and equalization. For example, when you pass a signal through a particular channel, it can be a noisy channel on the wireless noisy channel there. For example, on outdoor environment, so it's going to attenuate and it's going to change the phase of the signals there. And what will happen is that the signal will get attenuated and to some extent, and also the signal changes the IQ data, whatever is in the IQ data, right? That's called as the real time and the complex data, what you send there, imaginary data, the complex data. So that is not going to be the same thing what it's going to present in transmitter because it's going to get distorted there. So channel estimation and equalization will try to balance it out and bring that signal to the nearest form where exactly it was there. So this is when we have to use some of the DSP algorithms for channel estimation and equalization. And next thing is a time offset frequency measurement and correction. For example, if you're sending a data over the air from the transmitter, and you might receive the signal at something like plus or minus one or plus or minus 1 millisecond or some plus or minus 60 microsecond interval plus or minus there, plus 60 seconds or something interval there. The reason is that it's actually a propagation delay in the channels because you assume that one you are going to send from data from one transmit point to transmit point B, which is around 10 kilometers there. So the speed of light is 3 into 10 power 8. So definitely if you take the computation that there is going to be a change or the lag in the time, that offset correction, everything has to be done by the DSP side. Okay. Next thing is that with respect to the FFT and the IFFT side there. Okay. So FFT and IFFT side, which comes in the place of your computation capacity, that one. For example, where exactly we need where exactly we need some higher computational things, right? For example, if you take an OFDM signal, so the time we need to use the FFT and IFFT. That's actually we can just think about the basics of signal that one. For example, in the case of orthogonal frequency, right, we need to use the IFFT for modulation, IFFT for converting from frequency domain to time domain, and we use the FFT for converting the time to the frequency domain. So that is when we use for high throughput systems. This is when we use DSP there. Okay. So first thing I just talked about the wireless. This is where we use the wireless signals. So DSP in video and image processing there. So where exactly we use DSP in video there? So DSP is used basically in codec segment. So basically codec is nothing but a coder and a decoder for image and video processing there. So as I was talking about, we have different types of the codecs available in video. For example, the first encoder which became very popular was H.264, which was supporting the full the HD resolution there, and H.265, which can support the very high resolution, that up to 4K resolution there. Okay. So this is when we use DSP in these operations. The reason is that because the frame rate is at 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second, and we have to compute that one at very limited time, like something like a 5 millisecond window the time there. So the time we need to be very much faster when compared to the processing capacity there. And that's the first thing. And second thing is decoding the frames data. So whatever the compressed data is there, that you have to decompress and make a raw frame. And then that is when we need to have challenges that we have to emulate it with higher performance. So this is where we use DSP there. Okay. So next thing is that DSP encodes a raw frame, image frame, and audio, and compress into a stream like MP4, MKV. These are all done by DSP only there most of the times. Okay. Even though it is now evolving to some other technologies like FPGA, but most of the applications are still relying on the DSP architecture because of the speed and performance. Okay, levels, and with respect to the quality also there. Okay. So the encoded streams, whatever you want to send it. Okay, for example, YouTube streaming and other YouTube streaming or Netflix or Hotstar, right? So these are all streaming, right? So it has to be, the decoding has to be done by DSP to reconstruct your frames. So whatever the frame compressed data streams, what you receive, right? It's not a complete frame. It's something like it's just going to superimpose the frames on each other at 30 frames per second to make it like actually that it's actually real time frame what you're receiving from the receiver. So all that the building that frame again, the reconstruction of the frames, that all things has to be done by your DSP in the image in the image and video processing there. Okay. So once you reconstruct a frame, then can we do the buffering immediately there? The reason is that we cannot do the buffering immediately unless we have 30 frames or 60 frames to display on the buffer, right? On your display. For example, if it is a 30 FPS, right, or 60 FPS, we have to reconstruct 30 frames within that within 1 millisecond, within 1 second window, so that it appears to be real time. And the challenges placed are that, for example, if there's a frame blackout, for example, the frame decoding failed or something there, So then what we have to do? We have to do something like a superimposition of the previous frame to make sure that the quality is not diminished at any point of time. Okay. So this is one of the deconstruction mechanisms there. So next, I was talking about synchronization. For example, image and video, right? They have to be adjusted in time to minimize the error. For example, you can see sometimes that in some of the old the CVDs or DVDs, right, where the audio was coming first and the video was coming the second that later there, or vice versa, that video was coming first and audio was was coming at later point of time. The reason is that this is a lag error which comes most of the times due to the non-synchronization primitives. For example, if you're not able to achieve the timely synchronization of the audio and video, right, that's when we can get all the such errors that are. So how do we correct these errors? Is that when you're doing a streaming, right, we have to use something like an accelerator mechanisms so that the accelerator, it will take the timestamp of audio and the image, and the DSP will recompute the image saying that okay, it has to decode this particular part of the audio or this particular part of the video within this timeline to minimize these errors. Okay. So the next thing is that in standstill images, for example, if you take your digital cameras or mobile cameras, if you want to take a still image, right, we have to use the raw compression format like JPEG or something, right, compression, right. So that is when also we used some DSP there, but it is not extensively used. But to some extent, some people still use the DSP. Some people still develop it on the controllers there because it's not real time, right? Just to store the image and you send it on something like WhatsApp or something, right? It's something like you don't have a timeline that, okay, you have to send within 1 millisecond window or 1 second or something, right? So some extent we use in case of the standstill images as well. So where exactly we use DSP in automotive technologies? For example, I think you might have studied that there are a lot of innovation is going on the self-driven cars, that where exactly there is no driver required for the cars and just have a cameras mounted on all the four sides of the car, and based upon the distance the car can navigate, right? So where exactly can we use this one? The DSP can solve these problems because some of the companies are already working on these self-driven cars, like basically by doing some image analysis and image measurements there, based upon the how much of distance can be computed using some of the angular measurements there, some of the tangent measurements and angular measurements. So this is one of the ways that where we need to emulate the mathematical equations there and make sure that we can give the real-time data there. Second thing is that surround view systems. So this surround view systems is basically to help the drivers to just to in order to make sure that the driver, instead of looking in the mirrors, right, the driver can look into one screen and find out who is behind and who is on the left or something there. So instead of just referring to the mirrors or something there, this is one of the systems which is being developed by some automotive companies like the Volkswagen, and also to some extent Tesla also is using some of these techniques there. So basically they project the entire image on the windshield, something like just a raw image on the wind, something like not a full colorful image, but something which RGB image there. So making sure that okay, this distance from the next one car to other car is so and so. So all these computations are done by the DSP there in case of surround view systems. Okay. And next thing is that with respect to low latency communications, for example, you know that 5G is evolving and it's going to open up a market for the self-driven cars, basically using the low latency communications. For example, you can drive a car, they're just making sure that you can drive a car using the mobile phone, looking at all the angles from the 4 different cameras, and also finding making sure that one. So all these low latency communications and using some of the navigation techniques and also the detection technique like radar and everything, right? We need a DSP for all of these applications in automotive technologies. Okay. So next thing is that DSP in medical imaging systems. So where do we use the DSP in medical imaging? Medical imaging, it's a very big one. So DSP is used in your MRI scans, CT scans, and other places. For example, the different scanning mechanisms, whatever I come across, whatever I have just come across MRI and CT, but you might have come across different ones. So they use the image contour detection, and this is when also we use some DSP because we have to be it has to be everything like real time, right? Because we have to store the real time images, not like we can store image after processing, right? So this also requires that, and it requires some changes like measuring the bit depth, the specific contour or the area, and the periodic changes in detection using it can use some frameworks like OpenCL, MONAI. So these are all from NVIDIA. So where we use the medical system, imaging system. So DSP in military technology, DSP is used in a very high, very broad level, and it's used almost in all the applications there. So one dimension is that it requires very high operating modes. For example, what a normal system, commercial systems operate in one temperature and one variant, right, voltage, right? Military is a different one because they operate in very extreme temperatures, and that is when we have to be constrained limits. Something like it has to operate at minus 50 degrees on these controllers there. They should not be able to freeze the controllers, and they should make sure that the data acquisition and data processing should happen in very real time, irrespective of the outside conditions there. So what are the applications where we use DSP? So DSP is used in our radar systems, the navigation systems like GPS, GLONASS systems, okay, and military communication receivers. For example, it requires some proprietary networks and communication algorithms as well. And it's used in weather radar and thermal imaging, for example, in missile technologies and also in space technologies there, okay. And next thing is a DSP in space technology. We use the DSP for deep space communications, like NASA uses the Hubble telescope, right, to capture the deep space images, and it has to do some balancing, the image balancing, restoration, and also track that at what point we found that image and what is the time at that one. And next thing is that predict that okay, if I move this angle to the next angle, so where can be the next star or something, right? All the telemetry tracking has to be done by DSP side. Okay. So we just go to a case study. So can DSP be used for next generation technologies? Yes, it has to be used for next generation technologies because where we need more amount of speed and computational power, we use DSP there. So can DSP be implemented on generic core like ARM? Yes, to some extent, not to all the extent. For example, I was talking about how we can implement DSP for a standstill system like a camera, a DSLR camera or something, right? Where we don't need high processing, right? So that time we can use some DSP there. So can DSP be combined with machine learning, artificial intelligence, and neural networks? Yes, we can integrate DSP with machine learning algorithms because machine learning is not like a different domain, but extension of a DSP domain. So which I'll just talk about in the next slides. And artificial intelligence and the neural networks is also very much important for data classification in case of your video and image analysis and restoration there. Okay. Can DSP used in self-driven cars? Yes. This is when we have to use without DSP, your self-driven cars will have latency of more than 5 milliseconds, 10 milliseconds. That's going to create an accident every point of time because its data has to be real time. And if you're traveling at a speed of around 120 kilometers per hour in a car, right? Even 1 millisecond matters for you there because it can make you go out of the track there. Okay. So can be DSP used in data diagnosis? Yes, very interesting and important question. Yes, it is used for data diagnosis, and we'll discuss that one. Okay. So what DSP is just about is it's also not about signal processing that, but also involves some methods like signal detection, signal prediction, and signal estimation and correction as well. Okay, DSP is not just about we take input, process input, and just throw the input there, but we have multiple dimensions in DSP there. These are the 4 dimensions which you have to study in the DSP there. Okay. So can DSP predict the future state of the values based upon the statistical measurements? Yes. How DSP can use that one? For example, if you have a set of data, for example, input X and output X, right? So can we predict what is Y of N from using the current input and the last output? If you consider LTI system, that's called as the linear time invariant system. There is no time variance there. Yes, we can do this one, but with respect to some constraint there. So what is the constraint that one? The constraint is that we have to consider the system to be stable and input and output is bounded. Okay. If we consider within this constraint environment, right, we can predict the future values of the system there. So what is the processing time to compute Y of N? And what is the space complexity? Okay, a very interesting question. That if you know Y of N, you know Y of N minus 1. But if you know Y of N minus 1 and Y of N, can we predict Y of N within some timeline? Yes, we can do that one. But with respect to using some of the advanced techniques, prediction techniques, that's called linear prediction techniques there. So what is the space complexity? Space complexity is based upon how do you model the system and how much of time is required to process the signal also. Because if we have more amount of space, like we can store 100 samples there, and if you want to print the 101st value, it doesn't make much amount of sense because we have to pass through 1 to 100 time every time and print the next value there. But if we know the last 10 values and if we can try to balance out the next one. What is the next one? What is the 11th value? That makes the DSP much more powerful. And this is when we need the space complexity as well. Okay. So just talking about, okay, this is the prediction. This is one data there, X of n. This is something like a sensor data. Just assume this is a sensor data. So can we predict what is X of n plus 1 based upon this current data there? Yes, we can use some of the statistical measures, and also the inputs are bounded, right? Because there is no, we don't see any sudden variance, like for example, going to infinity or going to 0 or going to negative at any point of time, right? So wherein this type of systems, we can predict X of n plus 1 using some of the prediction algorithms. Okay. What are the basics for prediction? So what are the units of measurements for prediction, right? So what are the measurements for DSP? Some of the basic measurements for DSP is that the frequency response of the systems, the correlation of data with respect to time, there's autocorrelation, the cross correlation measures, and some some modeling algorithms like substral measure, Euler-Walker method, etc. So this is very much important. For example, self-driven, in case of self-driven cars there. Okay. And we can also track the data with respect to the one measurements like the mean, standard deviation, and apply the correlation based upon the measurement. Okay. So all of these are the basic measurements with respect to the DSP side there. So basically correlation and the autocorrelation, and some extent we use some of the other methods of measurement. For example, one can be based upon a statistical measure like your mean, and the like the mean of the signal, and the variance of the signal. And there are some higher order moments for DSP like skewness and kurtosis. Okay, that's actually, it's going to be create and open a new dimension there as it is. Okay, I'll not go details into that method. So what are the other things measurement for DSP? So for example, one method is that the time delay, offset, the start, and the error variance. That's what error variance is very much important to predict the optimal value there. So variance is one of the important parameter for DSP measurement there, for prediction there. Okay. So then we have to think about, okay, we made a prediction of X of n plus 1, but if X of n plus 1 is not the same as what we get what we measured at X of n plus 1 interval, so how do we minimize the errors that one? So we need some sort of adaptive algorithms to make sure that the prediction is within the tolerance level, or it's not going to change the boundary values there. Okay, conditions. Basically, that if you have something like X of n plus 1 within some boundary value, right? So the bound, it should not exceed, it should not make sure that it's the value is going out of bound because of some other measurements there. So all these some things has to be taken care for prediction there, measurements as a part of the prediction. Okay. So what all the current research is going on in DSP? So first thing is that, as you know, that most of the things in the outside world is not visible. So modeling one system is very much difficult task, and a lot of research is a lot of money, and a lot of people are putting money for this, and a lot of R&D is going on in this field. So for example, if you know the given set of input values and output values, so finding the optimal solution to minimize the error, right? That is when we need the modeling of the data there. Okay. Second thing is that we need to find the ways of iteratively predict the future values of the system with some known measurement and statistical measures. So and then this is basically something like an iterative way, that one. So that whenever you get an error, right, we want to iterate over time, and then we want to minimize the error. So a lot of research also is going on in how do we make sure that we can iteratively make the prediction go well there. So identifying the better ways to encode and decode data in case of noisy or fading scenarios. For example, as I was talking about, if you think about a noisy signal in case of any wireless system or anything, right, it's going to distort your signal. It's going to bring down SNR. Once you have a lower SNR, there are a lot of ways that the detection can go false, and also it can also get a lot of scenarios that it can fail that one. So the display will go blank or something in case of video there. So all of these things that the research is going on, that how do we make sure that the encoding and decoding can be go well there. Okay. And the next thing is that simulating the set of values, and the simulation, a lot of simulations are going on the optimization of algorithms, and also to balance out the time and memory problems. For example, DSP is not just about having infinite memory, right? So it's something like constrained memory and also time, right? Time bound, right? So a lot of research also is going on how do we optimize the things happen. So next thing is that high-speed feeding features. For example, when you consider a bullet train, if India brings a bullet train, right? So can all the mobile phones still connect to towers? So that is when we have some features in our DSP, and we have to exploit some of the things, not only one bullet train, but with respect to multiple trains and multiple communication systems, right? So a lot of challenges and other things are happening in case of DSP for all of this research is going on. So most of the people scientists are working on these solutions. Okay. So state of art of technology is there. We just talk about this one. So DSP is used in every communication device. For example, it can be your mobile phone, a wearable, gadgets, a satellite communication, DTH, medical imaging. Everywhere we use a DSP, and also all the wireless communication system like 4G, 5G, Bluetooth, BLE. Everywhere we use the DSP there. So DSP is scalable. So in the sense that DSP, once you have a DSP, right, you can have any means that you can because you can increase the number of cores upon within a single SoC, and we can also make sure that if we have something like 8-core DSP or something, right, it's going to give very high performance than having something like 12 cores or 15-core ARM controller or anything there. So in the sense that DSP is just not about thinking increasing the core also, but with respect to increasing the throughput condition as well. Okay. So DSP takes a new generation market starting from the image recognition systems. Like for example, image recognition, it can be your mobile cameras, right? It can recognize your face recognition systems, a video analysis, the speed detection system like using lidar, radar, and low latency communications like for example the self-driven cars, and high bandwidth communications and military warfare. High bandwidth communications is for example the 4K streaming or a military warfare there. Okay. So radar was the first detection technique used in flights to detect objects in the to detect objects in the air and predict the distance using Doppler effect. So this initial version of the radar, right, was using around 14 microcontrollers for use during the first initial radar design. But now a single DSP can emulate the functionality of the radar. Means that you can just imagine that 14 cores to one core, right? So where DSP stands for. Okay. So medical imaging, a lot of innovation is going on in medical imaging, like centroid calculation, contour detection, hypothesis testing, the probabilistic detection, everything required DSP, and where we need to a lot of what is it on the skilled force are working on this medical imaging system, because medical imaging systems are very expensive and it requires very high quality, right? So it is when I think a lot of investment is going on in this area there. Okay. So DSP algorithms can be implemented on the hardware using FPGA. I'm just talking about FPGA as well, right? Because previously we were using DSP, and now people are thinking about FPGA. But FPGA is it different there? But no, it's not different. Whatever the architecture and whatever the algorithm what we implement on DSP, right? The same thing we're trying to emulate with the FPGA. We're just trying to balance it out with the current network, with the current requirement and with the current network, whatever we have. For example, network can be that we have some gated arrays and other things, right? So we're just trying to network the cores and the DSP core with respect to FPGA and trying to balance out the computational speed there. Okay. So basically, this is used to tackle the speed and the space problems. Whatever we discussed in DSP, in the constraint run, right? We're just trying to balance out in this case of using FPGA. Okay. So we'll talk about what is the career path for DSP engineers. So how DSP engineers are different from the normal software engineers and web developers. Because DSP is bounded, right, to time and space, right? Whereas if you take a normal application engineer like software engineer, right, they have huge amount of memory, like 4 GB, 8 GB memory is available for them. For DSP, we have limited like 1 MB memory and time bounded. We have to complete one task within 2 milliseconds. For something like a web engineer or something, right? There's no timeline, right? The web page has to load within some timeline. There's no constraint, right? For DSP, we have a constraint in every millisecond or microsecond interval. For web applications, it can be something like within 5 seconds or 10 seconds. That's actually very huge space for them. So DSP engineers have 3 career paths which can be taken up for the path of the roadmap and gaining expertise in design, development, and testing there. Okay. So DSP is not limited to work on digital signal processor, but they can also gain expertise in FPGA, ARM cores, to some extent Intel core also. Because I'll give you some scenarios where Intel is also investing in DSP, but it's not open to everyone there. Okay. So the DSP career path for DSP works for the where exactly you want to work. For example, if you start as a DSP engineer today, where will land tomorrow? I'll just explain that one. So if you're a graduate from an engineering college, and if you go through some DSP, and if you go through some DSP training and skill or reskill yourself, right? So once you have sufficient knowledge on a DSP, you can have 3 different paths. One thing is that you can become more like an algorithm expert, where you can develop your own algorithm designs, where you can design and develop your own algorithms, and also lease a patent and do all those applications there. The first thing. Second thing is that you can gain expertise on implementation optimization. For example, if you just develop a patent and then if you develop an algorithm, right, it's not sufficient, but you need to do some more things, right? For example, you have to implement that algorithm in real time and also prove that this is actually the product which can be marketable, right? For example, marketable means that it has to be cost effective, and also the speed and everything should be good, right? So this is when the DSP development engineers come into picture there. And next thing is that firmware engineer. DSP firmware engineer means that the whatever the you develop on the firmware, whatever you develop the algorithms on the your the controller, right? That one has to be on the firmware. It has to fit within some particular memory. It has to meet the real-time performance, and it has to be with respect to meet the quality timelines, everything. That's where we require a firmware engineer there. And lastly, that if you gain expertise in performance metrics and performance in metrics, right? You can be a DSP test and performance engineer. No doubt that this is not something like a normal test or automation engineer what we have in the market. This is very much challenging job because you have to test for different scenarios, and it requires multiple amount of time, and the bandwidth where we have the people, right? We have people only in these two areas, but not in the algorithm level or in the test engineers, because this work requires extensive use with instruments, and this is when you're going to mature as a DSP manager there. So once you become an algorithm expert, then you can become a DSP architect where you can model your own algorithms, implement them, and also make sure that okay, somebody can implement your algorithms, patents, whatever you develop the patents, right? Somebody will implement that one. Or you can become a DSP firmware architect where you design your system algorithms there and also make the product much more versatile and robust there. Okay. So field of work in the DSP engineers, the one thing is that who got expertise in algorithm and implementation, right? So they can work as a DSP platform expertise. You can develop some DSP platform expertise, and you can work in the wireless or wired communication side like 4G, 5G, BLE, Bluetooth. That's one of the way that where you can stand as a different, where you can differentiate yourself with respect to other engineers there, because these roles have a very high amount of salary and very limited amount of resources, and the demand is very high for that one, but the supply is very less when compared to the wireless professionals in India. Okay. And next thing is that video, medical imaging, and speech. Right, this also is a very interesting area, and we hardly find people for these technologies, because for DSP video engineer, medical imaging engineer, there are very few companies, and the openings are quite high there, but we are not getting the right resources. This is when you can become expert also. The last thing is the DSP audio engineer. For example, it includes audio and speech. Like if you're working in some companies like where you want to do some transmission, right? For example, one thing is a Bose or a Harman or something, right? Where they need some DSP engineers to make their optimize algorithms and make it much more ready, right? So this is when we need some DSP engineers as well. The last thing is that in military and deep space military engineer, if you become a DSP military engineer, you have very wide chances that you can join some military, some top of the military institutes, and also some of the top military companies, also defense manufacturing companies. For example, one thing could be that you can also join SpaceX, right? It also requires some DSP engineers. So you can also mature in that angle, and that's very difficult to find because the expertise required for the military engineers, right? Should be proficient in wireless and other things, right? So if you're professional in wireless and other things, you can jump to the DSP communication engineer in the military and deep space exploration. So you can, once you become a wireless engineer, right, or an video engineer, you can implement your own algorithms on FPGA, DSP, CISC, and RISC also, because Intel has some code which is running, which is similar to the DSP core. It is given only for few companies, not for all the companies there, because it is under the license there. They just supply the code and also the hardware there. So that is when they can also implement your algorithms on the CISC and RISC architecture. And once you become an audio engineer, you can implement all of your algorithms in FPGA, because most of the audio, everything is limited. It's not very high challenging with respect to the other applications, right? So this is when you can also become a DSP audio engineer. And defense systems engineers are very highly paid, and very few countries are working on this DSP defense system. So job opportunities, very high demand in many countries that have a gap in bridging the right resources. So many countries don't have some web engineers, application engineers, CS engineers, but not the DSP engineers. And developed nations are facing resource crunch because they're not getting the right resources, and they're taking a lot of people from other countries, developed countries. Okay, and DSP is not about mathematics, but implementing the mathematics on the SOC. So DSP engineers ratio, if you think that in the real practical terms, it's 1 out of 1,000, 10,000 engineers. We have only one DSP engineer, and the gap is widening because people are opting for, if the people who are trained in DSP in EC, right, they are going to some other things like a data scientist or allied scientist, where they think that this is going to be much more different, challenging jobs there. But it's not the true every time that one, because DSP is much more bigger than a data scientist or an allied professionals. Okay, many developed countries like Israel, Sweden, USA, France, right, Germany, right, Switzerland, right, South Korea, Japan, right, they invite qualified professionals from countries like India and China. because they cannot getting the right resources in DSP in that countries, and people are moving out of the domains very, very fast there. So this is when we have a lot of challenges that we have to supply a lot of engineers to the different countries, and they are paid very heavily also. Okay. So what are the tools required for a DSP to become a DSP engineer? So MATLAB is a powerful tool. If you're proficient in MATLAB and Octave, right? Octave is equivalent of MATLAB. It's open source. So if you're good in MATLAB, you can become an algorithm engineer. And if you are proficient in using the tools like TI tools like Code Compose Studio or Extensa, right? Then also you can become a DSP engineer. So other freeware tools are based on GNU libraries and GCC for TI, for RM, etc. So that is not actually good to go ahead that one, because it requires some amount of your innovation also. Not that just the libraries are not very optimal, but you need to innovate more on the libraries and spend more time that one. So these are some of the starting tools which you need to become a DSP engineer. Okay. So trade-off between proprietary and the open source is that the proprietary tools are going to not, we cannot get the best optimization whatever with respect to open source tools, but with proprietary tools you get the best optimization performance evaluation there. So intrinsic based, I was just talking about one of the methods of how we can use the parallel instructions, right? For example, these are the instructions which are used. For example, they can do two operations at one time, and they can do something like they can just compute like 4 different computations can happen real time that one. So this is when intrinsic based coding will also speed up in DSP there. So this is when you can differentiate among the different professionals. Okay. And profiling is that it will just give you the count of cycles consumed, because for every instruction, right? So if you want to optimize the time level, right? You have to be good in counting the cycles and optimize for speed. So this is when we need the DSP engineers. Okay. So how do we bridge the gap for expertise? So industry demands the DSP professionals who can implement algorithms using the latest research materials. But from an academic point of view, you have to study it up to filters and to some extent on something like speech and other things, but or some part of the image processing there. But is it sufficient for you to jump into the one the where you want to become DSP professional? No, it's not sufficient. Where you need to go, where we need to spend some sufficient amount of time in reskilling yourself. That's basically the concept called as the learn, unlearn, and relearn. Okay, these are the three things which you have to consider to become a DSP engineer. And once you become DSP engineer, a lot of opportunities available in the outside market. Just to conclude that one, so DSP is playing a very huge role in the industry, and anybody can learn DSP techniques having a minimum exposure of basic electrical engineering skills. If you are good in mathematics and if you can understand the concepts, it's sufficient that you can become a DSP professional in the future. Okay, so DSP, that what we can conclude is that having a DSP experience and knowledge means that a good life in the market for a better survival and growth. So means that if you have a DSP engineer, you can survive at any point of time, and you have a lot of growth opportunities in the later point of time. So you don't need to worry about getting obsolete at any point of time, because the fundamentals of DSP will not change as per the time there. But for other technologies, like for example, if you are working in some OS in like Symbian or something in Nokia, but now it's obsolete, right? It's not in the case for DSP. DSP is used in every generation as well there. Okay.